Are electric vehicles a scam? You should know. How do electric vehicles work? EVs utilize electric motors to convert electrical energy into mechanical energy. High-capacity batteries are often used to power the motors. Lithium-ion technology is often used in automobile batteries. The batteries must then be charged via external sources. Many individuals charge their electric vehicles at home. Hello and welcome to today's video, where we're going to discuss about the subject. Are electric vehicles, EV, a scam? You should know. But before we dive into that, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Let's go on. The brief history of electric vehicles. While the notion of electric vehicles predates the advent of the internal combustion engine automobiles were the first to be built. One of the earliest electric car concepts originated from 1830s innovator Robert Anderson. However, no matter how brilliant the notion was, existing technology at the time could not support his beliefs. Until 1920, electric automobiles were little more than a pipe dream. Electric cars saw a boom in popularity in 1920 because the technology of the time restricted the power of the electric vehicle. These automobiles were popular among city dwellers. Nonetheless, they were highly costly to acquire and maintain. Along with this period, the petrol automobile grew popular, since it was a more cost-effective and long-lasting option for people at the time. The issue with EVs and automobile manufacturers. Electric vehicle technologies and concepts have existed since the invention of the automobile. The only reason they're becoming popular today is because the world is attempting to move away from fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are called that because they're ancient, not because they're composed of fossils. You must use a charging outlet at home or in public to charge this car. This will either be very costly, extremely difficult, or both. The batteries used in automobiles are produced from minerals discovered in the deep sea. Deep sea mining is now in the spotlight, and for good reason. Deep sea mining is a practice that will result in the extinction of many ecosystems and species living in the regions where they are mining. When the batteries are depleted, they can be recycled. However, given that just 2% of plastic is recycled, how can we be certain that these old batteries will also be recycled? It cannot be sustained. Yes, EVs reduce total emissions, but they are not sustainable. Cars with internal combustion engines survive longer and are less expensive. The definition of sustainable is anything that can be continued for an extended period of time. I do not think an electric automobile can be sustained for an extended period of time longer than a combustion engine vehicle. The issue is the automobile lifestyle. Some individuals rely on automobiles and vehicles to exist. Vehicles may be a great hobby for some people, and there's no denying that cars are nice. So I'm not criticizing anybody who enjoys them. I'm referring to the vehicle culture, especially in the United States. The globe is currently constructed in such a manner that driving is the sole option to reach destinations and resources in certain regions. Cycleways, footpaths, and public transportation are all on hold. The left treats electric vehicle naysayers as if they are Luddites. The truth is that making an established product less efficient but more costly does not truly qualify as innovation. Even the ostensible luxuries and technical improvements that EV manufacturers like to boast about in their advertisements have been standard features of gas-powered automobiles for centuries. At most, EVs are a lateral technology, if they live up to their promises. As a result, there is no true emerging market for EVs in the United States, but rather an industrial strategy that supports EVs via government purchases, advertising, state subsidies, cronyism, taxpayer-backed loans, and edicts. The Green Revolution is a top-down technocratic effort pushed by the elite. And it's becoming evident that the only reason large rent-seeking automakers are investing so significantly on EV research is because the government promises to artificially restrict the manufacture of gas-powered automobiles. President Joe Biden issued an executive order in August 2021 setting a goal of 50% of all new cars delivered in 2030 being zero-emission. California believes it will outlaw combustion engines in all new automobiles over the next 10 years. As a result, automakers develop business models to cope with these warped incentives and fabricated hypothetical markets of the future. In today's real-world economy, Ford expects to lose $3 billion on electric cars in 2023, increasing its two-year EV losses to $5.1 billion. According to reports, Ford will lose $34,000 on each EV produced in 2021. This year, it lost more than $58,000 on each EV sold. In a normal world, Ford would be drastically reducing EV manufacturing rather than increasing it. Keep that in mind the next time we need to bail out Detroit. But, I guess, we're already bailing them out. The United States issued a statement last week. Ford, once again, a business that loses tens of thousands of dollars on every EV sold, received another $9.2 billion in government funds for a South Korean battery plant. No national bank, one would think. Over the last several years, the cost of EV batteries has risen rather than fallen. We're still thinking EVs are a fresh concept rather than an inferior one, according to Ford. And these upfront losses are part of a startup mentality. However, climate scaremongering and a misguided romanticization of manufacturing, employment, have softened the public's attitude against this kind of waste. Lordstown exists in the real world. After General Motors, which also loses money on every EV sold, closed a facility in Lordstown, Ohio, in 2019. Then President Donald Trump publicly pressed the automaker to address the issue. CEO Mary Barra loaned Lordstown Motors, a new electric vehicle company, $40 million to renovate the factory. Ohio also granted GM an additional $60 million. You may recall the fantastic publicity that Lordstown received. Lordstown's shares rocketed up when Biden issued his Buy American executive order, vowing to replace the entire U.S. government fleet with EVs. Lordstown has produced 31 automobiles at the beginning of this year. 6 had been purchased by genuine customers. Most of them would be recalled. The stock was worth less than $1. Foxconn withdrew its $170 million investment. And just last week, the firm declared bankruptcy. Without major government support, EVs remain a niche market for wealthy virtue signalers. And, come to think of it, even with the assistance, that's exactly what they are today. According to a recent University of California, Berkeley research, 90% of EV tax credits go to persons with high incomes. The majority of EVs are purchased by high-income individuals who prefer the appearance and feel of a Tesla. That's just fine. I don't want to prevent anybody from driving the automobile they desire. I simply don't want to contribute to the cost. Why, after all, would a middle-class family reject a perfectly decent gas-powered automobile that can be filled, most of the time, inexpensively, and driven almost any distance, in any climate, and at any time of year? We don't need lithium. We now have the most efficient, inexpensive, portable, and practical energy source. We have centuries' worth of material stored underground. Climate alarmists may claim that EVs are required to preserve the globe. That's all right. However, by their definition, a bike is an invention, because the utility of EVs is very questionable even on their own terms. The majority of the energy they use is produced from fossil fuels. The production of an EV has a minimal beneficial impact on the environment. EV energy consumption. One EV uses the energy equivalent to 25 refrigerators. That is the increased power usage per family. If the typical U.S. household switched to electric cars, EVs. Congressman Thomas Massey, an electrical engineer, shared this information when discussing President Biden's goal to have 50% of automobiles sold in the United States be electric by 2030 with Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation. In most regions, the present and future grids will not be able to sustain each house operating 25 refrigerators, not even close. Consider California, where the system is already crumbling under the current strain. Massey asserts, accurately in my opinion, That universal adoption of electric cars anytime soon is a hazardous dream based on political science, rather than smart engineering. Nonetheless, governments, the media, academics, huge businesses, and celebrities trumpet an impending transition to EVs, as if it were predetermined from on high. The following are 3 reasons why the massive push for EVs is evil. But first, a clarification is required. You've probably heard the phrase, fossil fuels, before. When most people hear the term, fossil fuels, they envision a filthy technology from the 1800s. Many people think they are using dead dinosaurs to power their vehicles. They also believe fossil fuels will kill the globe within a decade and run out shortly, despite the reality that oil is the second most plentiful liquid on the planet after water. None of these absurd ideas are real, yet many people believe them. The use of propaganda terminology such as fossil fuels is important. I recommend replacing the term fossil fuels with hydrocarbons, which is a much better and more exact term. A hydrocarbon is a carbon and hydrogen atom-based compound. These molecules serve as the foundation for many diverse substances, including energy sources such as coal, oil, and gas. For decades, these energy sources have formed the backbone of the global economy, supplying electricity to businesses, transportation, and residences. Now, on to the 3 reasons why EVs are, at best, a gigantic sham and, at worst, something much worse. Reason number 1. EVs are not environmentally friendly. The primary idea of EVs is that they assist to rescue the Earth from carbon emissions since they utilize electricity rather than gas. It's amazing how few people consider what creates the energy that powers EVs. Hydrocarbons account for more than 60% of U.S. electrical generation. That implies there's a good possibility the electricity charging an EV is powered by oil, coal, or gas. It is critical to underline that carbon is a necessary component of life on Earth. It's what we expel and what plants need to thrive. After decades of advertising, Malthusian hysteria has instilled in many people the false belief that carbon is a hazardous element that must be decreased in order to rescue the Earth. Let us accept this ridiculous concept for a second and suppose carbon is harmful. Even under this reasoning, electric vehicles do not cut carbon emissions. They just reorganize them. Moreover, the extraction and refinement of the unique materials needed for electric vehicle production demands substantial energy in remote areas, a requirement that currently only hydrocarbons can fulfill. Furthermore, EVs need a massive number of rare elements and metals, such as lithium and cobalt, which firms mine in circumstances that are far from environmentally favorable. According to analysts, each EV needs around 1 kilogram of rare earth elements. The extraction and processing of these rare elements generates vast amounts of hazardous waste. That is why it is mostly found in China, a country that is unconcerned about environmental issues. In sum, the concept that EVs are environmentally friendly is absurd. It's merely a thin layer of misinformation that governments use to justify enormous public subsidies for EVs. Reason number 2. Electric vehicles cannot compete without government assistance. Governments have significantly funded EVs for many years via rebates, sales tax exemptions, loans, subsidies, tax credits, and other ways. According to the Wall Street Journal, U.S. taxpayers will support EVs by at least $393 billion over the next several years, which is more than Hong Kong's GDP. To put it in perspective, if you earned $1 every second, 365 days a year, approximately $31 million, it would take you over 12,677 years to accumulate $393 billion. Not to mention the massive subsidies and government assistance that have transpired in the past. Furthermore, governments place onerous rules and costs on fuel cars in order to make EVs seem more appealing. EVs can hardly compete with gasoline automobiles, even with this massive government backing. According to Power, a consumer research agency, the typical EV is still at least 21% more expensive than the average gasoline car. Without government assistance, it's easy to see how the EV market would dwindle. as they become expensive for the great majority of people. In other words, the EV market is a massive fantasy propped up by massive government involvement. It raises the question, why are governments going to such lengths to promote a plainly unprofitable scheme? While they are clearly crooked criminals and plain foolish, something more sinister might be at work as well. Reason number 3, EVs want to control you. Electric vehicles are espionage machines. They gather an unfathomable amount of data on you, which governments may readily access. According to analysts, autos create around 25 terabytes of data each hour. It doesn't take much imagination to see how governments might incorporate EVs into a bigger high-tech control grid. It is evident that such a system might be abused by busybodies or worse. Take a look at this. The last thing any government wants is an episode like the one that occurred when Canadian truckers protested vaccination regulations. If the Canadian truckers' trucks had been EVs, the government would have been able to crush the opposition far more easily. The bottom line is as follows. The people in power do not want ordinary people to have actual freedom of movement or access to independent power sources. They want to know everything, make you dependent, and control everything, much as a farmer does with his livestock. They have similar thoughts about you. That is why gasoline cars must be phased out, and why they are attempting to herd us into EVs. Conclusion. To recap, EVs are not environmentally friendly, cannot compete with gas automobiles without massive government help, and are most likely a critical component of the developing high-tech control grid. The answer is straightforward. Abolish all government subsidies and assistance, and allow EVs to compete on their own merits in a completely free market. But it is really improbable. Instead, it's only reasonable to anticipate them pushing EVs harder and harder. It would be terrible enough if EVs were merely government-subsidized status symbols for rich lefties who want to show off how they believe they're rescuing the Earth. But, more than likely, the massive drive for EVs signifies something much worse. Along with 15-minute cities, carbon credits, CBDCs, digital IDs, phasing out hydrocarbons and meat, vaccination passports, an ESG social credit system, and the assault on farmers, EVs are expected to be a key component of the Great Reset, the nightmarish future envisioned by the global elite. The so-called Great Reset is, in truth, a high-tech type of feudalism. Unfortunately, most of mankind is unaware of what is to come. Worse, many people have become unsuspecting foot soldiers for this goal, because they have been duped into thinking they are rescuing the Earth, or working in the best interests of humanity. This trend is already underway, and the future will be crucial. The video for today is over. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Please subscribe, share, and like this video if you like it. Appreciate your continued viewing. Goodbye and have a nice day.